I am Chester Dunham, and this is the Dunham Report, a marketplace of ideas and information for labor, civil rights, and other issues of social justice. I am Dunham, and I'm the host of the show, and my co-host is none other than Mr. Wesley Crenshaw. And tonight, you, the viewing audience, we do have a good show for you tonight. When we left off last week, we were talking about one of the most important things there is now at this time of the year, and that is this election. In the midterm election coming up, general election all in one. And we hope tonight that we're going to furnish you with some valuable information concerning what's happening now in the voting arena. I went by the voting office today to pick up some more literature to make sure that we all are up to date on everything. And we want you, the viewing audience, to be up to date on information that we have. We all know that the upcoming election is November the 6th, 2018. And that's not very long from here. If they have a runoff, we hoping they wouldn't have, the runoff would be December the 4th, 2018. And then if it's a federal runoff, those who are running for federal office, it will be January the 8th, 2019. But we want to let you know now that, fill you in on information that's going on right now. And that is the registration deadline is October 9th through 2018. And the polling place will be old. And if you have any other information so far as you need to find out about, please put this number down. This is the polling place. This is the main registrar's office. And that number is 912-790-1520. That's the number to call if you have any other information. Absentee voting by mail. And this is now you can, if it's already started, which is started on September the 18th, 2018, and it runs through November the 2nd, 2018. That's 4 days before the election. That's for absentee, and then again, absentee early voting in person. And that's if you want to go in person. You can start that on October the 15th, 2018. And that will run to November the 2nd, 2018. And then if you want to vote in person, you can do this also. You can do it 21 days prior to the general primary and nonpartisan election. And again, if you have any information, you can still call that particular number if you want to do that. But just trying to bring you up to date on the election and what's going on. Now, we talked about this on the last show. Wes, you wasn't here, and I know our guests were not here. But what we was doing is talking about the election, and gonna go into this and bring you up to date on even a little more things that's happening with the election process.
You're talking about the upcoming federal election and state election?
Mm-hmm. That's the ones that's coming up right now, and which has already started in process. And what happened is that I mentioned this last on the last show. And this is on the last show we had, this was a convention that the state AFL-CIO at their convention last year, they did some political endorsement. Now that's the state labor group. Again, I want you all to know that this show is in a sense, we can, or it's our show, we can do certain things, but we usually don't endorse candidates and stuff like that. We sort of kind of stay neutral. But I'm also involved with the A. Philip Randolph Institute. I'm a member of the NAACP, but I'm the president of the A. Philip Randolph Institute, which is a nonpartisan organization. What we do is we educate, we do a whole lot of different things. We make sure that we get registered people, do political education and get them out to the poll to vote and everything else, but we don't do endorsement. We are tied in with organized labor, but labor endorse. The Randolph Institute does not endorse. Chester Dunham or myself or the show, if I want to endorse somebody, I would do that in a heartbeat. But anyway, we want to just go over the upcoming election. And briefly, where you will know who all is running for what positions and all of this sort of thing. Number one is we're going to talk about the state of Georgia. The state of Georgia statewide election, which will start out with the governor, and this is all that's happening on November the 6th. That's the governor, the lieutenant governor, the secretary of state, attorney general, the commissioner of agriculture, commissioner of insurance, commissioner of labor, state school superintendent, and public service commission. Those are the key statewide positions that people have. Those positions will be on your ballot and wherever you live throughout the state of Georgia. In certain places, it'll be there. And so you can look for that. And I want to go a little further, then I'm going to stop talking, and then Wes and Ms. Johnson will be talking also. But the next thing is that the District 1, this is the House District, it's a U.S. Congressperson in the first district. That's in that office, as we all know, Buddy Carter is the incumbent. He is a Republican, and we have Lisa Rain. She is a Democrat candidate. She's running for that position. She is the candidate for the Democrat Party. She represents the Democrat Party. Carter, he is an incumbent. He have the position now. Those seats definitely will be, they are running, they are doing this now also. They're voting already, and they're voting all over the place. State office, this is the state of Georgia now. Ben Watson, he's the incumbent. He is the state senator in the first district. And then we have an opposition who, Ms. Workman, she is running against him. But he is the incumbent, which is Ben Watson. The state representative, this is 164th seat, a district. And the person who has occupied that seat now is Ron Shepard. He is the incumbent. He is a Republican incumbent. The person who is running against him is Alicia Scott. She's a Democrat, and she is running against Shepard. That's the 164th senator, representative, not senator seat. I think what you call him on the Senate side, Roy Jackson, he don't have no opposition. Lester Jackson, he don't have no opposition. Now we have the 161st district. That's out towards Poole in that area. That's a state house seat, which is a representative there. The incumbent is a Republican, and the person who is he have someone who is running against him for that particular seat. I think that guy's name is Briggs. I'm gonna make the pronunciation Correct. But anyway, we do have that. And down in McIntosh County, no, not McIntosh County, Glenn County, which is further down. And the reason I'm mentioning these things because the show itself, people would check us out different places. We're not just right here in Chatham County. And that person's name is King. And that's he's running for the 167th seat. And he's a Democrat. And so that's what's happening on the political scene. Let's talk about either one of you all, the upcoming election and how important it is, and to make sure that we ask the people to please get out and vote.
Well, thank you for coming to this evening, Ms. Monifah Johnson. Glad to see you. What I want to say is that, I take a look at the people like Monifah, the young ladies and the women. They have actually carried the vote for the black people in the community. So I want to thank you all guys for doing the right thing. Now I want to say to the men, it is our time to help the sisters out. We cannot just sit idly by and let the sisters do all the heavy lifting. The guys need to get out and vote. If you know someone who's in your family who's a male and he's old enough to vote and he's not on papers or parole or anything, you need to take him to the polls. You need to get him registered and take him to the polls. This year we would like to see at least a 50 to 60% increase in the number of males that vote in the election. We don't want the sisters hung out there by themselves. So my thing to you, if you are a male and you're watching this program, make sure that you got your registration and everything here and go to the polls and take somebody with you.
I think we need to pay particular attention to the number of women that are running throughout this state, in this community as well. I think that this is a history-making moment, and I think if we can get all of the ships to align and move in the same direction, we can really move this state forward in a positive direction. And I think women are going to be leading the way, and it is a historical moment because so many women are the Democratic nominees, especially in these races. And they won primaries, and they are accepted candidates and have proven that they can run and lead. And it is now time for women to win these races and to lead this state.
I'm glad you mentioned that because in the past we have had that's why I didn't mention names and stuff too much, because we have had a lot of them on the show and talking about this, and we have already did some shows with really talking about female, just like you said, and especially around the Atlanta area. We got one person, of course we talk about her before, it's not on the thing tonight, but we talk about that she is the Democrat nominee. In other words, she won out in the primary, and she will be representing that area. I think it's in the, it's either the 6th or 7th, but I'm pretty sure it's the 7th district up around Atlanta. And that's for U.S. Congressman going to Washington, and then also we got Lisa right here in the 1st district. That's another one. And then we have this one other person also. Then we have some statewide seat people who are running for office. And the key thing about it is she just mentioned about women's. I don't have the book tonight, but I meant to have it here in front of us because I want to give it to Ms. Johnson to look at it. And it's a book dealing with females. They said the expert have studied this, and they put this book together, and they said this is really the year for female, and especially black female. They didn't hesitate, and the thing about it is what they have done, they've done the research. They got all the facts there. They're not guessing. So when they said black female, they have already tested the water. They had already won a lot of position in primaries in different places already, and continue winning races, different places. They have run in a lot of places where Caucasian or either white may even outnumber blacks, and they have won those places. So they're looking at now that definitely is the time of the year, especially for black women who are taking the lead It's nothing to hide because the facts are there, and that type of thing. So this is what's happening, especially now, and that's why we figured that, like we said, Wes just said a few minutes ago, we did coming up on the tail end, but women's are taking the lead and they're doing this. And right last week on the show, we had Trotter. Beverly Trotter was on, along with a young lady, a student from Savannah State. And we talk about all this kind of stuff, and they are teeing right in and being involved. And that's why it's a good thing to get the college kids and all of these involved. Well, because there's so much happening now, and we got to be out there and making sure that we protect our rights and our privilege, because it's so much stuff that's happening throughout the United States everywhere, and we got to do certain things. And I don't have to talk about it because we've seen it happening every day.
Well, the thing is, this is nothing new. Black women and women in general have been involved in politics since the beginning of this country, and Black women have shown their worth and have actually assisted in campaigns. They have been running the back of house when you talk about the civil rights movement and who was, doing a lot of the work. Women have always been involved in it and cooperating and pushing the issues that are foremost in our community's minds and trying to basically work for change. That's nothing new. It's just that we've reached a time in our society where that leadership and that work is now being validated in a different way and being validated across a larger spectrum, a broader spectrum of the community. And it's about time. And I think if this is the year, we will see when the numbers show up, and whether or not what we feel is the synergy is actually the reality of what's happening in the voting booth.
I'd said this to Crenshaw and to on the show and stuff, and this is where they and Charlie Flemings, who is the president of the state AFL-CIO, which signed this after the endorsement of various candidates who are running for office throughout the state of Georgia, and which they have already endorsed and already supporting various individuals. And who took the lead on this is the young lady who's running for governor, and that's Stacey Abrams, who is one of the first one that that the labor movement endorsed. And this is a first for organized labor, and they're working hard to making sure that they can help get her elected. And they're not just doing it just for a show. They are doing it to support her, because she is supporting all the issues of working people, and especially organized labor in the state of Georgia. They've had all the different candidates before them, and they talked to them, and they did all the different things that is necessary to do with the forum and everything else. And she a high mark so far as answering certain questions concerning issues and things of working people, not only organized labor, but people who work for a living throughout the state of Georgia. And that's what we have to be thinking about and talking about, because there's so much things that's happening now, especially for people who are working for a living. Benefits and all the other kind of things that's being stripped and taken away from them. A lot of people sell brownie points, but then facts are there. And labor does a good job to making sure that they do the research and making sure so when they come up front and say this is what's happening, that is factual things, and that's what we try to do.
But the thing is, I don't think that labor's doing that just because she's a woman. I think labor's doing that because her values, the values she's espoused, are consistent with the values that labor upholds. And it has also been the tradition within the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party and labor have always worked hand in hand in most cases to support candidates that share values and that support labor. So she is in that tradition. So it's not an exceptional thing because she's a woman and labor supporting her as a woman. It's that she is a Democratic candidate and she shares the values that the Democrats share with labor.
But you know, one of the things that I'm impressed about her is that her ground game, as I was explaining to you earlier. You know, we talk about getting out the vote. We really have to put a lot of pressure on people. When I say pressure, I mean we got to get our neighbors and our friends and our cousins and everybody out. But as I said, I had a couple of her operatives come to my front door and ask for my son who votes erratically, and then pass me by. I felt a little bad about it, but what can I say? So I was impressed with her ground game because they asked for him and said, no, we want the person who has not been voting regularly here. That's who we want to talk to. So my thing is that if you got that kind of a ground game, you likely will have some very serious information about what you can give to the individuals and how you can lead and guide people. So I was impressed by that. So I'm already pushing her like I don't know what.
Well, you know, I'm glad that you said those things just now, because issues, and then you're talking about labor, and you're talking about the Democrat Party, and I tell people all the time, I'm a Democrat, and I'm labor, but I look, like you said, I study issues and everything else. So the basic thing is that you mentioned all of those things a few minutes ago. That's fact, because you can pick up, I called Washington today to get, they sending me some information on report cards of all the congressmen and senators throughout the United States who who are in office, to get their report card, their track record of all the issues and things that they voted on in the previous year, this year that's over with, and to get the background on everything. And for the last, I don't know how many years I've been doing this, and the key thing about it is that if a Republican, and I've said this I don't know how many times, if a Republican, whether you're male, female, black, white, no matter who you are, if you vote on issues or things to protect people who are working for a living and all the things that our viewpoints and stuff like that, you will get a lot of support. But they just don't do it. You can check their record and you can pick up the information, and you don't have to even look at what party that person belongs to. Mm-hmm. You can put your hand over that, but you can just look at it and you will see on their percentage and how they score. And you can look at it over here and you can look and see, well, the percentage is 90% or 95%, 100%, 85%, 80%. And you look at that and they're all Democrat. And then when you look over here and see 0 or 5% or 10% or something, that's for people who are working, and the benefits are needed. And that's how their score is. And that's the reason why Democrats just pull more Democrats, pull the people who are running for office, they pull more individual who works, and why labor support them because of the way they vote. And that's just it.
That makes sense. There are commercials out right now that and they ask the question whether or not Ms. Abrams is too extreme for Georgia. And again, that's why I wanted to bring up the fact that she is in the traditional sense of a Democrat, and that those values transcend to labor, and because they have a partnership, they've worked together for many years because they share the same values. And that's not extreme. So I don't know what they're referencing when they ask, is she too extreme for Georgia?
You are Crenshaw. I don't want to look because I'm labor. And if y'all were the show we're talking about, and you can go here or here, either way, the different individual. You can take the first one here and versus her opponents and see
Now, one of the things I wanted to say before we get to that is that, you know, I look at a lot of the commercials on television. I'm not surprised that we do not have a lot of Republicans or conservatives pulling for those things that working people do. Many of the commercials and people who are being backed, Republicans, are being backed by big business money and those influence and things like this. And it's beginning to flow all over the country. If you look at the commercialization of dairy farms, the commercialization of all the pork farms and things like this. So I don't expect to have a lot of people on the Republican side to take care of those issues that poor people wanted, because they are being bought out, as far as I can see, from with big business. I think the Koch brothers. If you look at all the little fine print at the bottom of things, you'd be surprised who's running the same ones all the time. So my issue is simply this: we got to be aware that there's a lot of money flowing, and we don't know where it's coming from. With some of the programs that have been passed by the Supreme Court allows big business to spend a lot of money in elections. So we got to be careful and find out where the money is coming from. Then we'll know what the real issues they're supporting.
Well, that's a much larger issue. And you have money on both sides, honestly. That is politics in this country. And again, the Supreme Court ruling has allowed for that. So it's just a matter of where you want to spend your time. But in the meantime, paying attention to what's going on with a candidate in regards to what they espouse as the values that they represent or that they're going to support, and the items that they list as the issues that are foremost on their agenda and their platforms. I think more people listening and paying attention to those things would better serve them as they go into the voting booth. Everybody is in this economy, people are tired, they are stretched out, and quite frankly, I think many people feel like government is failing them. And when you start having a critical mass of people who feel government is failing them, it's not that people are apathetic, they are discouraged, and they don't feel like the people that they vote for sometimes are doing the job well. And when you get to that level of discontent, that is when things really start turning left. And not left in the liberal sense, left in off the cliff. And so again, trying to really decide where your energy is best served, and making sure that you are paying attention to the issues that are foremost in your mind, and the values that the candidates espouse, and then trying to hold them accountable once you vote for them and get them into office. To keep a record of what they said and then hold them to that. And I think that's the most that most people can do. Tracing that money trail that's a lobbyist job. That's the think tanks. That's for the journalists and other people to run down. Most average people are not going to have the time or the energy to run that down. But what they can do is listen to the candidates and hold the candidates accountable for what they say and what they make them believe. If you believe in that change that they're espousing, then you jot those notes down, a date and time, and you hold that candidate accountable for that later on.
I just think that we need to be aware of that as we talk to the young people today, because so many of them are discouraged because they do not understand why people are voting the way they vote. So I try to get a little bit of money trail and spend time talking to them, because many of them say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's not going to change anything. And I try to explain to them what's going on, and I use the money trail to do that. But I think that we need to make sure that we let people know that we know what's going on, so that they don't feel that they're just lost.
I'm glad you mentioned, and I'm going to mention this before I forget it, and that is that that sample ballot that I picked up today, and we looked at it, and this is a statewide on what I was concerned about, because it was talking about so many Constitution amendment and other things, which a lot of time people don't really understand it. And this, I'm telling this for the elected officials who are out there who are listening now. And it's a shame, because I hadn't heard, it's no elected official that I know, white or black, male, female, Democrat or Republican, unless you go to them and bend their hand backwards and do everything in the world and see if they understand about those amendments. What they need to do, what you all need to do is be studying those amendments yourself. Y'all are the ones who put it together and vote on it. So you need to be studying those amendments. Come back into the community, the people who you represent, talk about those amendments and what is good for the people and what is bad. And y'all know, because there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad. So we're going to be doing some studying and research and doing a lot of, not research, but we're going to do some research to find out the goods and the bad, to make sure that when we tell the people to vote, they make sure that they vote the right way on those amendments. Do y'all have anything y'all want to say on that? Because this is something that they don't never talk about, and they need to talk about it.
Well, I heard one radio show this morning trying to discuss an amendment, and it took me a while to realize that the person was actually spinning it in a certain way. And so I was wondering how many people were actually listening to this. And I said to myself, now, how do we get the right interpretation of this amendment out to our community? That's the thing that crossed my mind as I listened to him talking about how this was going to do this and it's going to do that, but you should vote this way, you should vote that way.
Well, I don't know that people are going to specifically tell you which way to vote, but definitely clarifying the language. The amendments are written in legalese, and there are tricks to get people to vote certain ways.
Yeah,
and definitely you need some decoding of those amendments. Now, there have been there have been groups like the NAACP and the League of Women Voters. There are groups that have been working on providing that information, and they will give a suggestion as to which way they would like to see you vote. But definitely having forums and conversations about sifting through the legalese in those amendments is necessary. Absolutely.
In my labor organization, because just like you said, they got staff and things, that people who study those amendments study everything, and to make sure that they will guide you and give you the right information when time to vote, and which is the right way to vote on it when they do the depth study. But they also do that, and we get that information through the institute. But labor is the other organization that you talked about is definitely independent, and they is right down the middle, go one way, and which is the right way, which is the best way. But I said that the organization like the labor does got staff there and resource and people there to making sure that they will get all the information that you need if you seek for it, and we need to, and we're going to do that to make sure that we share that information with the general public, because those things are, like you said, they're tricky. And a lot of time you might ask two representatives. I've asked them many times, 2 or 3, and asked them on different the writing of the way it's compiled or put together, and the interpretation will be different. Mm-hmm. Not all will tell you to, one say one thing and one saying another and the sort of stuff. So you have that type of problem too with individual and the interpretation of those things.
Yes.
One thing that we want to make sure that we lead into before we leave, and that is this Supreme Court decision, which is the big thing on the book now. For the last few weeks or more, every day you pick up a newspaper, you will see the paper is half full of what's going on in this particular situation. And that's every day. And then if you turn on television, on various news stations, they talk about that day in and day out. We want to talk about it a little bit tonight. And one of the key things that I look at this morning in the day's paper, and it was in the day's paper, they say blacks see a double standard in the case. In other words, they were just, and that was when the paper started. And Wes, if you would read just a little bit of one article there, starting out after the heading.
This column is by Jesse J. Holland of the Associated Press, Washington. Marcus Dixon was sentenced to 10 years behind bars in Georgia for having sex with an underage white girl when he was 18. Damon Davis, another black youth, got a 5-year prison sentence for stealing a $100 pair of shoes at gunpoint when he was 15. It's cases like those that minorities and others point to with frustration when they hear some of Brett Kavanaugh's defendants saying the sexual assault and underage drinking accusations against the Supreme Court nominee fall under the category of boys will be boys. Some see a racial double standard at work, complaining that when young blacks get into trouble, their actions rarely are viewed as useful folly in the way that the misdeeds of privileged whites are. I think there is a very distinct difference between the benefit of the double standard that is extended to black males and the white males, said Jarvis DeBerry, columnist and deputy opinion editor at the New Orleans Times.
Picayune. That's the name of the newspaper there, okay. Times Picayune.
Okay. That's what you wanted me to read.
Okay, I wanted to just touch base on a little article that I look at, and I was watching this on television also, and then I saw it in the paper where they were saying that Dr. Ford and her accuser, and they said that Dr. Ford say a drunken, well, we know who the accused is, but he held her down trying to take off her clothes and cover her mouth, and she covered her mouth trying to stop him from trying, and he covered her mouth trying to stop her from screaming. In other words, the accused person did this, and to her. And then the thing about it is, after this happened, they said many of his supporters said many of his supporters believed that they believed him. He believed he was innocent. Now, these are some people just in general say that they, right after all of this, they're looking at this on television, looking at this lady bringing this information to the general public, and they turn around and some of the supporters say that they believe him, and with all of this information. And then they had suggestion coming from others who said, well, if it happened, it's one of those things. Boys will be boys, or either youth, bringing that into the situation. And on the top of this, you got a situation here where a Supreme Court justice is on national TV, and all of these people are protecting this particular individual. Either one of y'all want to respond to that?
I'd like to start.
Right ahead.
We all know there's a double standard in how blacks are treated in general in this country on a variety of different levels or areas. And so I don't think anyone is questioning that there's a double standard in how black men and black youth are treated when there is a sexual assault, arrest, or accusation that occurs, and the follow through by the DA's office and what transpires. But the thing is, as far as sentencing and conviction rates when compared to white men, the issue is on this particular topic that it's foremost in everyone's minds right now. But if I, as a black woman, am going to be in the struggle to end that double standard, then why wouldn't I focus on some other areas where the double standard takes place and takes shape? Why would I be in the forefront of challenging the double standard when it comes to sexual assault, when we know that women, for the most part, do not report when sexual assault occurs. Right. And when women do report it or come forward, they get treated with condemnation and victimized a second time. So again, on that particular issue, I recognize, yes, there's a double standard, and there's a double standard for Black people in a lot of areas. So that's not, as I said, that's not one that I'm ready to be in the forefront on, to fight for Black men to have an equal footing with white men on sexual assault.
So do I hear you saying that this is not something that Black women need to lead?
I can't speak for all Black women. I'm just speaking for myself.
Okay. I understand what you're saying. Because my general feeling is that this is, in my opinion, this is a mess that belongs to white women.
I beg your pardon?
This is a mess that belongs to white women.
In what way?
In the fact that I think that they are aware of their husbands and boyfriends and things. I grew up in a society where I feel, as I said before, these women know, in my opinion, who they were marrying when they married them. This is not something new. And I feel that a lot of people was going around saying, well, they're surprised that this is surprised that I'm not surprised at that, because when I was in corporate America, I could sit around a table like this on any evening and hear guys talk about these sorts of things that go on in fraternities, things that I never even knew went on until I got to that stage in my life. So my thing is that he may not be guilty of this particular one, but as far as I'm concerned, he could be a good poster boy as far as I can see, in my opinion.
Let's start with the white women. Repeat that part.
I said that I think that white women are very aware of these problems that they had in their families a long time ago.
Okay, far be it from me to be the defender of white women, but I will speak on behalf of womanhood. We live in a patriarchal society, and in a patriarchal society, the power paradigm there exists amongst men, and men fostered an environment of privilege for themselves, and even for men of color, there was the male privilege if you did not have the color privilege. So we're talking about a different system. We're talking about patriarchy.
Yep.
Hold on. So again, you're blaming the victim of a situation, and let me explain. When we start talking about systems of oppression, let's use racism as the model. You got racial prejudice plus the misuse of power by systems and institutions. In patriarchy, you got basically a male preference plus the misuse of power by systems and institutions, which is going to give you patriarchy. Now, in the racism paradigm, Black people participate in their own oppression.
Yep, they do.
And so in that regard, Black people are still victims of racism, although they may participate in their own oppression in ways that basically manifested through internalized racial inferiority based on the systems. So for women can participate in their own oppression as well by upholding the patriarchal paradigm of who is the leader in the household, by admonishing other women who step out or step in front to lead, by basically trying to keep other women in check, by the same things that we say Black people do to each other. Women do that to each other, but the power privilege still exists with the men. So again, internalized feminine inferiority would be at play as women participate in their own oppression, basically upholding patriarchy, operating against their own interest in a patriarchal system, because they believe that they've been indoctrinated to believe that system benefits them, or there is a Christian basis for that system as well. So again, when you say that, what you said, because I would need to write that down about white women, basically.
I was at, this is you feel to me you're putting in place is just what I was talking about. These women, many of these women are of a hole in this situation. They know about their husbands, their brothers and sisters.
But that doesn't mean that you had a society that embraced them being able to come forward to say anything. That there aren't real repercussions. Look at what's happened to Dr. Blasey Ford in coming forward. That there aren't real repercussions for yourself and for your family. I don't disagree. In coming forward.
Let me say a couple of things, and that is, I think these newspaper articles, whoever, different ones who are doing the writing and who are doing a lot of things, and reporters on television who are interviewing different people, they have been doing, to me, a jam-up job, a good job. I followed all this, reading the paper every day with the situation. And to see the situation here, like somebody's made a statement here, say, others have suggested if it did happen, he might deserve a pass. In other words, they know there's somebody who's talking that no problem, it happened. But well, if he did it, give him a pass. He deserves a pass. A senator from Wisconsin, the state senator, his name is Scott Newman, I think his name is, and he tweeted something about the truth and making excuses. When you look at this situation here, this lady, I guess, sitting down there and seeing somebody that they're trying to put on the Supreme Court, which will last for decades, and how he would interfere with individual lives. I mean, in making decision of certain things. And she sat there and thought about this individual who done did all of these things to her during that period of time. She didn't start just yesterday. She started a long time trying to get some help, but nobody wanted to listen. Now people are listening and start to listen. And that's why individual, I don't care who you are, whether you're white, black, green, blue, or who you are. We need to fight this thing because that's who we got there and who the other group are fighting for.
But tell me this, do you think it would be the first time that a Supreme Court justice might have exhibited some of those behaviors?
No, heck no.
So, but this is the first time in history that it's actually being called out.
It's not the first time. We got a black individual.
You talking about
on the Supreme Court?
But
the situation is a little different.
It's absolutely different.
It's a little different.
It's different in that the
still,
reception this time is somewhat different than it was back then.
That is
and
that's
at least
correct.
That means the needle has moved a little bit in the direction of women being treated as equal human beings.
Yeah, right.
And that consent is needed.
That's right.
Before you engage in those types of activities.
I agree.
But again, we will see if we have really, how far we have moved forward.
That's right.
Based on whether or not they actually confirm him or not.
That's right.
And I think there's a lot of pressure on certain senators because they will hold together as a block unless three particular senators, Flake, Collins, and
Lisa
and
they don't need but two of them.
Yeah, but
like
again, but then there's some Democratic senators as well that are that have not gone public with what their persuasion is at this point.
When they get ready to vote, they're gonna vote the right. They got those numbers there. They'll vote the right way, but they know they need.
What's the right way? What do you think is the right way?
The right way is going to be to condemn this person here and move him up to court.
No.
Chris over there saying it's not going to happen.
No. I predict that guy, because his behavior is so well known in certain circles that they will hold their nose and vote that man in. I do not have a lot of confidence.
And it's not only for that particular situation. It's how many times he done sit there and lied, day in and day out, lied to the court, lied to the Senate, to everybody, under the oath, and still yet they still trying to protect him.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you is that it doesn't matter when it's all said and done. There's only one thing that is going to happen. The only person that may not vote for him is Flake, but I do not have any confidence that Murkowski or what's the other, Collins, and that guy from West Virginia,
Manchin,
they're all going to hold their nose and vote, because when it's all said and done, they're all in the same class of people. They watch it. I believe that boy's going to get confirmed. Like he has, as far as I'm concerned, he has no right being there. But I believe he will be confirmed, and they'll hold their nose to let it go back.
I don't think he can get confirmed.
well, I want to wait and see what happens.
I predict that he is going to get confirmed.
I'm going to wait
I'm
to
right.
see what happens. I am
Because
hoping
I'm
that he
telling
is
you,
not
because-
confirmed, but I'm waiting to see what happens.
Next week this time, he will be
Because see,
confirmed.
it hurts this country.
Will it be the
Wait,
first
wait,
time?
wait, wait,
Not
wait.
only,
There's a whole lot of things.
not only, I mean, but this decision even hurt the country, because what people are looking at in the free world, global, they're looking at this country. And we dipping our nose into everybody's business like we supposed to be the savior, making the right decision for everybody. And these people are looking at this country now and say, Lord, messing up big time.
Well, under this
Yeah,
president,
and
they
it-
pulled away from that.
Well,
Remember, he wants to pull out of NATO.
This
and
is what I'm
he's
talking
trying
about.
to
This is what's
pull
happening
back
right
from the
now.
foreign aid
And now this
and-
right here will be icing on the cake.
But Chester, remember one thing I always said, right? People were dissatisfied with Obama, and they're going to get a Philistine in the bush. Well, we got a Philistine in the bush now.
I think some people are gonna come up forward and be honest about it and gonna make the right decision. I don't think this is gonna happen. I really think that
Well, look at this.
It's gonna go down.
So who's going to push against him? Surely not certain Christians in the South.
who that.
Certain Christians in the South.
Well, see, the Christian in the South, it don't have,
Evangelicals?
what need to happen right now is the Christians in the South should be on their phone calling their representative, calling their senator.
Yeah.
They are on the
They
phone.
are.
calling them. The issue is that they will hold their nose because they want Roe versus Wade overturned. And
Well,
that's the
it's-
paramount
it's
issue.
more
And everything
beside
else
Roe
is
versus
secondary.
Wade. That's
and
one
once,
of them.
once that happens,
That's one of them, but it's more
they've
beside
made the
that.
Well, and the thing is, to turn, if with the Supreme Court, if you have a conservative Supreme Court, everything that comes through Congress, if there's a lawsuit and it goes up the channels all the way to Supreme Court, it can be overturned or upheld based on this conservative court. So the ultimate power will truly rest in the Supreme Court. And if you have a Kavanaugh there, you're looking at 40, 50 years of a conservative Supreme Court. That's definitely into the next generation with serious ramifications.
Let me just say something.
That's what
On the
people.
interpretation.
Wait, listen. How many people thought Scalia would be gone?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
true.
But see, West, the
But you
thing
don't
about
wish
it, you
it-
can't
you don't
look for
wish
them
harm
kind
on
of.
anybody.
I'm not with you.
You don't
Yeah,
wish
but
harm on
this is what
people.
I'm saying. I'm saying that there's a higher power than us that we
Well,
concerned
the
about
thing
that.
about it is that right now we are down here on earth and we're looking at the situation and it's going to affect us now. We got a situation here where they need that one additional person on the court to swing the court. The court right now is tied.
Yes, it is.
4-4. And that's what they need. Scalia is gone, so they miss him. He's not there to swing the court. Kennedy was a person that every now and then he might, cast a vote here or
right
there.
thing.
But I done lost all respect for him because he done made a deal with the Trump administration with money and this and that and got off the court early enough to give this man chance to appoint somebody else to get him in there. That's the deal. That's what's happening. So now, just like she said, they're trying to swing their coat. And that's the way it is set up, that the court will start overturning everything there is. Just look at, Georgia, just the other day. This young guy, what his name is, he was this man Page. But what you call him stepped down the other day. What's his name? Who was?
He's
Yes, it's a federal court position. What his name?
I know who you're talking about.
The federal judge in this area. What's his name? God, cases here. He handled Troy Davis case too. But anyway,
I'm trying to remember.
these people this is a young guy who was his pager, and he stepped down just the other day, and what you call him have to have something to do with it, the president, but still yet the state senators, the U.S. senator, had a lot to do with it to push him in. So now this judge is going, and he's now going to take over. Now he's there for, he's a young guy, he's there for life.
The one who was the assistant DA that got moved up.
Yeah, they moved him up. He was the assistant to this guy, but he originally was a pager. Started out under this guy as a pager, but he was his assistant, and they just moved him up. He just got the position just the other day. Now he's permanent, and he'll be there. And the only thing that move him now to another position or something higher than that, but he got that job for life. All the other ones on the Supreme Court. So that's why we can't be taking chances because of the situation. You got some other people on the court. This man had gotten there, he ain't been in office 2 years, and had a chance to get 2 judges on the court.
Yes, it is.
2 judges.
And there are many.
Rob on Obama's situation, they took him down. They didn't let him get in there and do that. And that's the thing that people got to understand about the government and how it's set up. Because just if the Democrat was there, in the last midterm election, if people didn't stay at home and did a lot of other kind of things, if they went out and vote, we wouldn't have had all of this situation here. Even in Hillary's case the other day, they throw that away. We lost that because we wouldn't have had to mess with all this mess that we are doing. But we are messing with it because that's the way the system is.
But see, Justin, I believe that we could have done a better job of fighting these Republicans than we do. We need a little more direct action. People were asking today on talk radio, what is it that the Democrats should be doing instead of just going back and forth with this? Do we think this is the right way, Mr. This and that? Maybe we need some direct action in Congress from our Republican representatives.
But I think starting at the local level, people need to see their government work for them. And when you see the government working on behalf of the people, then you have some faith in the system and it propels you to participate. The problem is that on every level, you've got some dysfunction in government. And and that dysfunction in many places is causing a lot of people to become discouraged and to not believe in government. And when you have a critical mass of people that do not believe in government, and basically this is what you get. People are out, basically decide no longer to participate. So the best thing that can happen is that, especially starting at the local level, you vote people in and you hold them accountable, and you need to be participating in your local government and make sure that they are operating and functioning. That you move to your countywide level and your state level and then the national level. That's how you're going to actually basically propel people to participate at every level. But if you don't see it working at the local level, when you can't get sidewalks in your neighborhood, and your neighborhoods existed since 1945, then that's a failure of government.
Okay.
So when you can't get your street repaired, when you can't get the water, the flooding managed, when you see the encroachment and shifting in business zoning ordinances so that people can build all kinds of things in your neighborhood, and there's not enough parking for your vehicles, where you can't park in front of your house and get inside your home conveniently with your groceries. That's a failure of government.
I can identify with the drainage. My favorite drainage spot is
we're gonna talk
MLK and Victory.
We're gonna talk about local government the next a great deal, because you are correct in those things. But I'm saying to the voting audience now, to the people who are listening to us now, we got to, the local stuff is November the 6th. That means that we have to go in the state of Georgia, because they're doing it other places, but we got to make sure that we come out victorious. We got to go to the poll and vote, because other individuals who are having problem too, and they are still going to the poll and vote. They are outvoting us, and that shouldn't happen, because we got those, we outnumber them, but we are sitting back and not doing things. So now we got to make sure that we go to the poll and vote. This is the time right now. If we do that, we will see a lot of changes will happen. If we can win this election, then you will see the changes of the Supreme Court, because if we can win this election, you will see the changes in the Congress and the Senate and everything else, even the big house, all of that. So we got to make sure that we are out in this election and be victorious. We'll be talking about it the rest of the, until November the 6th.
So let's be clear about that big house. You mean the White House?
Yeah, the White House. Definitely the White House. Okay. So, listening audience, again, we are delighted. We're glad to have you on the show. And you're definitely going to be back, because you light things up. And so you have been listening to the Dunham Report, where you, the community, come first, keeping a focus on the future. And again, we want you to tune in to our page, on our channels. We're changing over, and a lot of this thing I'm not doing the way I want to do it, because I'm not used to it. But anyway, we will see you next week, and with another good show. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you.